Good evening, everyone. My name is Sean, and this talk is getting non-technical teams excited about IAM, or hacking people with social skills. Thank you. Who am I? I am Sean. As I said, that's a photo of me over there. This is me over here as well. Bit redundant. I use they, him pronouns, and I am a senior security engineer at SoundCloud. The opinions expressed herein are those of my own and not of my employer. So, why am I lecturing you about IAM? And is it because I've done it way too often? Every single employer I've had, from Network Operations Center to Help Desk to sysadmin, IAM is a mess. Companies are trapped in the past. They don't have holistic solutions. They don't even know what they have. So, let's start off with, what is identity access management? It's a holistic approach to managing access to everything, absolutely anything on your computer. If it's inherent, or if you have to authenticate to get access to it, or especially items that you don't have to authenticate to get access to, like network drives that might just be open. This is everything from accounts that clients set up for your staff, or accounts that your staff went out and created on their own. SaaS apps, network infrastructure, it is holistic, as in it is absolutely everything that you do at the computer. And this is going to be an ongoing process. IAM is not a single project, and even getting to a better state isn't going to be a singular project. It's going to be a series of fairly large-scale projects. So, you're probably asking, where do we start? First things first, staff just want to do their job. They want to go to work, 9 to 5, get a paycheck, complete their tasks. Even if they're really, really excited about what they're working on, they don't want you to change their processes. They don't want to learn new tools. It's a tale as old as time. But modern tools, especially automations, SSO, everything else, can offer greater convenience. It's going to be a journey to convince them that it's actually worthwhile. But in the end, I have had positive relationships built with them and have convinced teams that it actually is worthwhile to change. This is going to be, and I'm going to say this a lot, it's going to be a long-term process. You can't rush it. So, now to actually begin, we have to establish a baseline. We have to figure out what we have. So, you're going to have to work with every single team to get as complete of an inventory as you possibly can. Managers aren't going to know what tools their staff are using. Many managers don't do the work their staff do, they've never done the work their staff do, or they've inherited teams that have similar but different functions. And they don't know the direct day-to-day work of their staff. This is going to be old school. This is going to be super, super manual. Excel sheets, notes, everything. Throughout this process, as you build your inventory, you're going to want to establish what authentication capabilities the tools have. Do they have SSO? Do they have MFA? Do they not have MFA? That's a big red flag. How are we going to tackle that? And you're also going to want to figure out if SSO is going to cost you money. SSO.tax is getting a little bit outdated, but still a fairly decent resource for figuring out how much money am I about to fork out to get SSO for this product. So, you also want to take a kind approach. You really, really want to be a friend to your staff. You want to take a big, deep breath and recognize there are going to be shortcomings. There are going to be things that are not compliant with what you testify. There are going to be people going out of scope, going out of process, using company cards to do God knows what. and finance is overlooking it because, you know, $20 a month isn't a very large bill. You're going to want to start with your team leads, and they probably aren't who you think they are. They aren't necessarily going to have lead in their title. They aren't necessarily going to be managers. These are going to be the people that directly onboard new hires, because they're going to have the most in-depth, up-to-date information about how users receive privileges, about how user accounts are created, about what tools new staff are using in their day-to-day at work. This is going to be arduous. It's going to be painful. It's going to be lengthy. It's going to be a lot of synonyms for that. It is going to be slow. You're going to be talking to these people in Zoom meetings or in real meeting rooms, if those still exist. And you're going to be doing this for a long, long period of time. And you want to be really kind. You aren't there to be a disciplinarian. If you go in there and say, this is a massive risk, this is illegal, why are you doing this? OMG. And you start disciplining them or start calling out what they've done, they're going to clam up. They're going to, in all honesty, forget what their day-to-day is. They're going to just give you the most common tools they use, and you aren't going to learn anything. Throughout this process, you want to learn what staff are doing. How do their jobs function? What automations can you create to expand and automate the giving and removal of privileges that they need? You're going to want to establish lifecycle access of every single role at your company. I know, that's massive. It's going to be a pain. But in order to get a holistic picture, in order to actually understand what all you have inventory-wise, you really, really need to understand who gets access to what. When someone gets promoted to senior, what are they getting as well? Everything like that. Are there different clients that have different requirements? Are these account managers having this access, but there's this one client that does something weird and you only talk about them like once a month because they're probably on their way out of the company, but still you get access to some tools that they give you. You're going to want to know all of that. And throughout this process, you're going to want to establish what these teams' biggest pain points are. And you actually want to fix some of those first. Why fix their inconveniences first? Why fix their pain points first? Aren't you in security? Shouldn't we be focusing on risks? You've already lived with these issues. These issues exist right now, at the moment. Unless you actually know about a threat actor attacking you using a specific method, like not having MFA on something, then why are you doing this project and not tackling that direct issue that you actively see occurring? But assuming everything's fine, you're in the middle of this project, it's okay to delay these things, to get some wins, because you are going to want brownie points. You are going to want as much brownie points from these staff as you possibly can buy. It's going to buy goodwill, and goodwill is going to make it faster and smoother throughout the parts of the process that staff are going to like significantly less. And it's going to show them up front that you really want to partner with them. You really want to help them. Getting down to business. Now, you got some goodwill. You really, really need that goodwill now. It's time to figure out your biggest risks. As you're building out this inventory, as you're figuring out what the current state of these products are, what the current state of these tools are, whether they have MFA or not, as you're going and building out all those really, really detailed information about the current status of those tools and the options that those tools have to secure them, you're going to want to tackle your biggest risks. And you're going to want to actually find real risks, not unlikely scenarios with 0 days that's never been exploited. You're going to want to tackle actual things that happen time and time again. Things like client impacting services not having MFA on shared accounts. things like shared accounts, which have access to your client's Meta Ads account and can actually spend live client money. Not having MFA. Having their credentials stored in a PDF document. Awful, awful things like that I've actually seen. So, once you start tackling those risks, it's going to annoy people. What you have to do is you have to talk to them like they're real people. You can't use technical language. You have to say, our competitor had this happen not too long ago. Look at their reputation. It's in the drain. Look at all the clients they lost. We made a lot of money because they lost all those clients. We don't want that to happen to us. If you can't find something comparable, there's probably something vaguely similar which you can translate, or you can just speak in broad, plain English terms. These are real risks, and you need to explain why. Next, you're going to want to form a committee. You're going to want to make it up of a diverse amount of teams, as far-reaching and different as you possibly can get. You don't want it to be too big. You want it to be manageable, because large committees are unwieldy, unproductive, and useless. And you're going to want to appoint a director who probably has too much time on their hands, and you probably already know who they are, to lead the committee. You want them to be an impartial person, not directly in your chain of command. And most of all, you aren't going to be on the committee. You're going to attend every single meeting. You're going to take exhaustive, awful notes, but you don't get a vote, because that gives the committee a feeling of impartiality, and it gives them a feeling of legitimacy. Building these committees with stakeholders from across the business, actual real people on teams doing these works, is going to give them a feeling of ownership. It's going to redirect their coworkers from going to your help desk, to your security analysts, and yelling at them that this automation didn't work as expected, that this process isn't going as expected. They are going to bring these to the committee members on their teams, and the committee members are going to hopefully follow the right process. Will that happen 100% of the time? Absolutely not. But it will hopefully reduce it, streamline it, and make it a teething issue rather than a massive fire drill. These team members are going to be collecting team feedback, pain points, and suggestions. You don't know these tools. You probably really don't want to use these tools and learn them and everything like that. These staff actually use these tools day in, day out. Them and their team will have suggestions about how things will work. They'll better understand what privileges someone is supposed to have. Will it be in direct technical terms? No, but it can explain a process to you which can help better inform how you need to teeth and refine your automations and everything else like that. Now you're going to want to repeat this forever. Yes, forever. This is a permanent function. Whether it's security or IT, this is infinite. Tools are going to change. Authentication will change. Automations will change. You're going to need someone whose job it is to continue to refine this and continue to change it. Teams will onboard tools. They'll offboard tools. They'll forget they have tools. You'll get new clients. New clients will demand specific software. You have to onboard this software. This is also going to be something that the committee will help with. Since you have this committee, staff are hopefully going to give you more advance notice when you're onboarding things, because they regularly talk about IAM on these committees. So when their team is onboarding a software, they'll be like, I might not have told security about this yet. So hopefully you'll find out about it sooner. And then tools will also change authentication methods. They'll update, they'll remove, they'll break. You're going to want someone who can do this, full-time hopefully. And you might want to start thinking about budgeting for an IAM staff, or at least an IAM person. Okay. Yes. Behind authentication is an interesting choice of words. Ideally, everything is behind authentication. And should you really have a privileged network? Should you have a VPN which automatically gives staff a certain level of access? Should you just continually tinker that and narrow the scope and narrow the scope and narrow the scope? It is a difficult decision depending on your architecture, especially companies with older, more built out infrastructure, more traditional infrastructure. You're going to have to assume some levels of risk, and you're going to have to assume some level of basic access, that everyone receives access to this. Ideally, the committee can hopefully tell you what teams need access to what tools, and then depending on what kind of authentication provider you're utilizing, you can narrow it to groups, OUs, however you like. I'm very lucky not to have experience with that. What I can tell you is I've evaluated a lot of vendors, and a lot of vendors, people like SailPoint, who sell IAM solutions and IAM automations day in, day out, they don't have good answers to that. When we told them we don't use any old school systems like that, they breathe a sigh of relief and say, thank God. So I don't think there's any proper answer to that, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Keycloak is a really, really good tool for that. Yes.
Getting back to your title, where the excitement went into the non-tech people. Super excited.
So the excitement is as you roll out automations, as they onboard new staff, and they see that, this onboarding went better than any other onboarding we've ever had before, because we know from day one what this user is supposed to have. You're not spending months and months and months getting users access, figuring out who owns what product, what team owns it, because so often these products aren't owned by the security or IT team, and they might not even have any access to these products. So you have to go to this other team who's the one that onboarded the product. So centralizing this, building out these information resources, and understanding how to onboard staff and what they need day one is going to be a big sigh of relief for staff, because faster onboardings is more time for people to start running, or less time for people to start running. Yeah, making their jobs easier. They don't need to worry about password wallets if you start using SSO. Password wallets are incredible, but SSO is a lot simpler.
So
access reviews are really, really difficult. I find it best to really narrowly define what access staff need, and if you can really, really narrow that down in definition, then if people change to a different role, if they leave the company, hopefully you can build out automations with your HRIS that say, okay, this person changed teams, left, you can shut off that access in an automated fashion. To really get down to the paperwork of it and certifying who has access to what is very difficult. The best things are to build relationships with these teams, to talk to them on a regular basis about these tools, about things you can help improve with them from a security automation standpoint. And as you build these relationships, hopefully, many of the time, I'll even know if I want to say most, they do become better at giving back and forth and actually giving you feedback about, okay, completed that access review on time, here you go. And depending on how sensitive your company is, depending on if you're in critical infrastructure, medical devices, stuff like that, if you really need to, you can just pull the plug if they don't respond before the end of the quarter about who has access to what. You haven't responded in time, okay, your access is revoked. But that also makes people very unhappy. All right. Looks like there's no more questions. Thank you so much.